Hello humanoids, welcome to Halfling Hobbies. I'm Halfling Hannah, and if you're wondering what I'm doing out here, I did not get kidnapped, I promise. I'm actually out on my family farm. All this on both sides of the road here is our generational family farm. And while I was here taking care of the animals for my parents while they were out of town, I thought that it might be fun to do a video about things that DMs maybe don't think about when it comes to woodland encounters and woodland travel. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and I thought that I would take you through the woods here on the property. This property is over 125 years old. It's been in my family for 60 years now. And so we have some really old woods on the property that give you a really good idea of what your players might be traveling through. So here we go. The first thing that I don't think DMs really understand or consider about woodland travel sometimes, if you've never grown up somewhere like this, is that the roads, if you see this road here behind me, this is what we usually assume roads would be like in wooded areas. However, this is actually a very well-maintained road. This is one that gets fresh gravel on it nearly every year, and that gets graded often. Your roads are not going to look like this. I'm going to show you what the old road through here used to look like that hasn't been used like regularly in about 50 years. Behind me right here is the entrance to the old road. And if you don't see it, that's because it is very much overgrown at this point. It has not been traveled in quite a while. But right where that fence post is right there, that's the entrance to it. So let's go down in here and take a better look at this. This is the entrance to the old road. This was used a lot to cut through the farms from the river. There's a ford down at the river that then cuts through one of the fields, through the woods here, and then up onto the second road that then became the main road. As you can see, it's really grown over, and it's basically just a part in the trees. You can't tell that it's actually a road. There's just a lack of trees there, making it an easy path to go down. This is going to be more the flavor that you want in those old woods, those that are very seldom traveled or traveled only by like rangers. They're going to cut paths like this that aren't very visible and that are kind of difficult to go down. So we're going to go down here while we talk about a couple of more things. When you are doing nature checks and survival checks for your players to get through the woods, it isn't always that your players get lost. Hold on, big spider web. Part the spider web for me. Ah, there's a spider on my phone! Ah! Please go away, please go away, please go away. Get off my phone, get off my phone, get off my phone. Farm girl, terrified of spiders. I'm not afraid to admit that. So, point number 2 is that survivor and nature checks aren't always about getting lost and your ability to find your way in the woods. A lot of times there is going to be some kind of path in which you can find your way through. However, those aren't the only things in the woods that you need to be aware of. One thing could be you need to go to the bathroom in the woods, because if you're traveling through, that's going to happen. And perhaps you roll a nature check to find some toilet paper, and instead you find some poison ivy or some stinging nettle. That will make for a very bad time. I'll show you some stinging nettle, in case you don't know what it is. So this is stinging nettle, and if you get close, you see that? Yeah. You see all those thorns? The leaves, even the leaves are absolutely covered in teeny tiny thorns that get under your skin and just irritate the daylights out of your skin. The very base where I'm holding this doesn't have any, but yeah, everything up here is terrible. Also, I don't know if you can see, look how deep, that might be a weird angle, but look how deep all of this underbrush is. So we've seen two examples of roads. One is very well maintained, one is not maintained at all, and this is the third kind. This is kind of sort of maintained, more like well used. So this is another one of those roads that was just created over years of like farm equipment going through, and it is still used a lot today, and so you can see that it's pretty well maintained. If you have like a merchant caravan that goes through an area a lot, if you have rangers that are going through an area a lot, this is much more what the road is going to look like. Traveling through the woods is tiring work, and you're going to sweat a lot, and you're going to need a lot of water. Water sources are not something that DMs typically think through all that much, but in any given wooded area, you're going to have multiple sources of water. Each one is going to be more or less dangerous depending on the source. So the first one that you can have is a spring, which I have right here. Mollie is doing a great job of demonstrating. So this spring flows out of the hillside from an underground aquifer. It is actually incredibly clean. Look at how clean that is. It's crystal clear. It's ice cold. Beautiful drinking water. You can drink this without any fear of getting sick. And as a matter of fact, I drank it a lot as a kid while I was down here. The other thing that a spring like this will provide is at least some food source. Most often animals are going to come down here. You can actually see right there is a deer path. So there's lots of tracks in there of deer and raccoon and lots of small animals, rabbits and all sorts come down here and use this for water. So this would be a great place to set up traps. But also things like watercress grow down here. This is very small watercress. Obviously there were cows down here recently. Cows love watercress because it's delicious. But that is a very good food source as well. The next water source that you could have is a pond. So right behind me here, you can see the pond, I think. Yeah, you can see it. There it is. So a pond is another source of water. These happen naturally, and also humans make them. This is a man-made pond, and you can see it is nowhere near as clear as the spring, even though it is spring-fed. This type of water can actually be really dangerous to drink, and you should never drink standing water outside unless you have some kind of purification system or you boil it ahead of time. You can get some really nasty diseases and parasites from drinking stagnant water, which could be really fun to include in your woodland encounter. Perhaps the most dangerous thing in the woods is not the owlbear lurking somewhere, but the diseases that your party could get because they don't know not to drink from the mud puddle and they're really thirsty. The last water type is rivers, which is also here, but that's gonna take quite a hike. Working hard for this video for your subscription, so you know, if you could do that, that'd be cool. Golly. See, difficult terrain. Definitely moving at half movement because of this terrain. Okay, and holes. There are holes, so there's that. While we're hiking to our next destination is a great time to do our DM question. I would absolutely love to know in the comments down below, what is your favorite thing that you have ever done in a wood traveling or a woodland destination in your campaign? I'd like to see some really interesting ideas, some new ideas that we all can steal and use for our campaign. So please make sure you leave that in the comments below. And I'm gonna catch my breath now. So we're almost to the river. It's been quite the hike, but I wanted to show you something in the ground here. Go ahead, do you see it? Well, make your nature check. Do you see it now? There's a deer trail here. If you couldn't see it, if you look closely down in here, you can see tracks. Now, most of you I will forgive for having no idea what I was just pointing out. Again, it's only because I grew up around here, grew up deer hunting, looking for such things, then I know what the heck to look for. In my game, they want to try and forage for food. They have to have a proficiency in nature. No negotiation. Even a nat 20 for a wizard, you're not going to be able to track down something to eat or find anything in all of this dense underbrush that's actually edible. Because a good rule of thumb, if you are out naturing about, is don't eat anything. Not a single thing that you find. Because almost everything wants to kill you because it doesn't want to be eaten. See these berries? You know, your typical wizard or barbarian may be tempted to snack on these babies. Poisonous, like just about everything else in the woods. See this? This is poison ivy, also poisonous. That's poison oak. So, good rule of thumb there. Don't eat anything that you find in the woods. Here's a Halfling Hannah tip for you. So, behind me here, you can see the edge of woods that have not been touched for a while. You can see all the undergrowth and underbrush there. If you were trying to go through this, I can tell you it would be nearly impossible. There's just so much undergrowth and debris. This is what your average party would be contending with if they were just going up to the woods and trying to get in. It's gonna be difficult, really difficult to try and get in here. And I'm not gonna do it. I love you guys, but I don't love you that much. My legs are already all tore up for you. I love you though. Look at all these beautiful flowers though. Aren't they gorgeous? I do love flowers. This is why I have my wildflower tattoo right here. That was a long hike. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you do. Please. Okay, so last kind of water source is a river. These generally tend to be cleaner than ponds, though again, you can get very, very sick if you don't purify or boil your water before you drink it. So if you're camping next to a river and you need some water, you can boil it and you should be safe. It may not be the best tasting in the world. There may be some things in it, but as you can see, it's pretty clear. I am on a cliff, by the by, in case you're wondering how I got such a cool view. There's a deer track down there. Can you see it? Did you spot it? Put in the comments down below if you spotted the deer track. There's one single deer track, so he must have been traveling in the river, which they do from time to time, especially in the summertime when there's a lot of undergrowth. Another really great thing about rivers, specifically when you're talking about woodland encounters in D&D, is that if you want to run a water combat, rivers are a great place to do that. There are some crazy stuff that can be found in rivers. Specifically in the area I'm in, there's alligator snapping turtles, which look very much like a dragon turtle. They're just gnarly, and they'll take a tow if you're not careful. There are also catfish the size of school buses have been found in some rivers, along with some other really nasty things. So if you really want some kind of cool, unique, different encounter that isn't wolves or an owlbear, consider looking to a river. Perhaps there's a very large river that your party's going to have to try and get across, or maybe even travel down to get to where they're going. And that's a great time to use some of those unique encounters that way. But yeah, I'm really just talking at this point so I don't have to walk back, because I really don't want to walk back. That's how difficult this terrain is. I really do hope that this glimpse into the woods, and especially old wooded areas, has given you some ideas, at least for your D&D campaign, especially if they're heading into the woods. I hope it gave you some ideas, some considerations, maybe some things to throw in there. And until next time, my friends, may your game have advantage. Halfling Hannah and Mollie here, signing out.